This is actually something that bothers a lot of people and an issue I've had myself. Hey everyone, today I've got 5 tips for dry hands, and they're not as simple as moisturize your hands. There's a lot more you can actually do to help this. I'm Dr. Sapna, I'm a doctor who suffers with acne and I studied dermatology, and that makes me the perfect person to talk about it. Now, on your hands, your skin can get drier with changes in weather, general exposure to irritants, and generally because it's on your hands and you use it so much, they're really irritated. And this is a bit of a spectrum. You might just feel like your skin is a little bit tight and dry on your hands, and it can get really bad to cause really irritated, cracked, red, bleeding skin as well. There are lots of different types of eczema that can affect the hands as well, starting with these tiny little blisters that can become these huge sores and cracked skin. If the skin on your hand looks really sore like this, definitely see your doctor because you might have an underlying type of eczema going on. You can try the tips that I'm going to go through a bit later, but if it's really severe, seek help from your doctor. Now, the first tip is something that I actually think is really helpful, but I'm also really terrible at, and that's wash your hands in cold water. Now, washing your hands, and even generally when we shower, we all have a tendency to use hot water because it feels really great, especially in the winter. But actually, this can strip your skin of its natural oils. When your hands are dry or irritated, the heat can actually make this worse. Instead, switch to using much cooler water when you wash your hands and when you shower. This will really help prevent losing moisture from your hands and from your skin generally. I've also switched to washing my face in cold water, and this really helps with all kinds of inflammation and helps prevent dryness. Now, this also includes when you're washing your dishes. You might opt for super hot water to wash your dishes, but actually this will worsen your dry skin. So an easy solution to that is wearing gloves. This will also help protect you from those harsher cleaning ingredients. Number 2 is wash your hands properly. Now, I know it sounds silly and people obviously know how to wash their hands, but this is something that is actually really common. If you don't rinse off your soap or your hand wash properly, you can actually get irritation and dryness. Now, in the small areas between the fingers, you can actually get irritation from soap that gets left behind. Another common place to get that irritation is underneath and around rings and jewelry. That small amount of soap that gets left behind, sometimes you can't even see, can cause localized irritation, which leads to dry skin, redness, itchy skin as well. So just take an extra few seconds to make sure you're rinsing off all the soap properly. The next tip is about using the right hand cream. Now, for years, I used to get sucked into overly fragranced fancy hand creams because I loved the smell, but actually they did nothing for dry hands, particularly if you've got an irritant dermatitis. These fragrances can actually worsen the irritation. Instead, I prefer to use creams from more medical emollients, for example, E45 or Cetraben. These work really well against this type of issue. Remember, on your hands, you can tolerate much greasier and thicker creams compared to your face. On your face, you have those oil glands that can cause irritation and congestion if you're using these really thick creams, but your hands don't have as many of those oil producing glands, so you can actually tolerate much thicker creams, and those greasier creams are actually more effective to help this issue. But of course, see what you can actually tolerate or prefer, because I know that if it's really thick and greasy, people find it uncomfortable if you're using the keyboard or using your phone lots as well. By the way, if you're enjoying this video and you like all things skincare and derm, hit subscribe. I release videos every week about skincare and derm topics, so definitely check it out. Now, going back to the topic of hand washing, tip number 4 is avoid too much alcohol gel. Obviously, since the pandemic, the use of alcohol gel has gone up massively, and as a result, lots of my patients, lots of my colleagues were suffering with dry hands from using too much alcohol gel. Now, alcohol gel is super useful if you're out and about, in hospitals, things like that. You can use the alcohol gel to kill off any superficial bacteria on your skin as well. However, the overuse of this alcohol gel is really drying. Now, the alcohol gel evaporates off your skin, and that's why we don't need to rinse our hands after using it. But this evaporation process also encourages the evaporation of water from your skin, leading to dehydrated skin. Now, I found this problem really hard around the pandemic time. I work in hospitals, so I have to be really cautious not to overdo it. What I do instead is actually wash my hands properly with soap and water when I have access to a sink. Overwashing your hands can cause this issue, but if you know you need to wash it if you work in that environment, sometimes it's kinder on your skin to use soap and water. If you follow those tips I mentioned earlier, using cold water, making sure you rinse off the soap properly, this will help the dryness you get on your hands. Now, my last tip is to actually be careful with jewelry. Now, there are certain types of metals that people are often allergic to. The most common one is nickel. Now, there are lots and lots of jewelry that have nickel in it, and if you've got an allergy, you can actually get irritation, skin dryness with a bit of swelling as well. This is just something to consider if you have this issue. Often, if people are wearing lots and lots of rings and jewelry, I'd say take some time off of wearing them because this might help the irritation. Like I said, the main culprit is nickel. If you're worried you have an allergy to these metals, definitely see your doctor because you might require some further testing. So those were 5 tips on how to deal with dry skin on our hands. If you're hanging around, here's a link to a recent video about heat rash and how to actually treat it. Thanks for watching.